Hello and welcome back to another episode recap. In this recap video, I will lay out 5 things that I learned from my conversation with a historical expert. And today, we'll chat about the first season of the History Channel's TV show called Project Blue Book, about the U.S. government's investigations into the UFO phenomena. Now, if you're a regular listener to the audio version of the Based on a True Story podcast, you'll know that I had UFO expert Rob Kristofferson on the show to talk about the historical accuracy of the TV show Project Blue Book. Rob is also the host of the popular podcast Our Strange Skies. Well, that episode was over an hour long, so if you don't have the time to listen to the whole thing yet, well, that's the purpose of this video, to relay the 5 key things that I learned from my discussion with Rob. So let's get started. Number 1, Project Blue Book was not the first investigation into UFOs. The TV show seems to imply that Project Blue Book was the first time the U.S. government investigated UFOs, and that is not true. Rob explained to me that there were 2 different projects beforehand. The first was called Project Sign, and Dr. Hynek was involved in that one. The second was called Project Grudge. After those came Project Blue Book, which, of course, is the title of the TV show. Number 2, most of the characters on the show are made up. There are a lot of characters we meet in the TV show: Captain Quinn, General Valentine, etc. As is often the case with a lot of movies or TV shows, those characters are all composite characters. For example, as Rob explained to me, the character of Captain Quinn is based on 2 different people who headed up Project Blue Book for the government: Lieutenant Colonel Robert Friend and Captain Edward Ruppel. In fact, some of the only real people in the TV show are Aidan Gillen's character, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and his wife, Mimi Hynek. I suppose you could say their children are real too, although in the TV show we only see one child, a son, Joel Hynek. In truth, there were 5 Hynek children. Oh, and as a bit of movie trivia for you, the real Joel Hynek designed the camouflage effect for the movie Predator, and also won an Oscar for his visual effects work on 1999's What Dreams May Come. Number 3, Dr. Hynek was involved in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This isn't mentioned in the TV show at all, but as a movie fan, one of the things that stood out to me from my discussion with Rob was how Dr. J. Allen Hynek was a consultant for Steven Spielberg's 1977 movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In fact, it was Dr. Hynek who came up with that scale: Close Encounters of the First Kind, the Second Kind, etc., that the movie is titled after. Now, as a little extra bit of movie trivia for you, Dr. Hynek himself makes a cameo appearance in the movie too. Number 4, there were no Russian spies like on the TV show. A big part of the TV show involves some Russian spies who are trying to use Dr. Hynek's wife, Mimi, to get information on Project Blue Book. Now, the Cold War was certainly something that happened post-World War II, so I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying there's not spies in general. But with that and the timing of the U.S. government's UFO investigations happening in the 1950s, it would make sense to tie those 2 things together. But as Rob explained in the interview, there's really no evidence that the whole plot line from the TV show with the Russians trying to infiltrate Project Blue Book actually happened. Number 5, Dr. Hynek might have met former Nazi Verner von Braun. Rob explained that he stumbled across an article by Dr. Hynek's former secretary that Hynek worked on V-2 rockets. Those were, of course, the rockets designed by Nazi scientist Werner von Braun. It was von Braun who came to the United States after World War II and headed up America's rocket program that ultimately was a precursor to the space race. So even though there's no proof that Dr. Hynek physically met Werner von Braun face-to-face like we see in the TV show, since Hynek worked on the V-2 rocket designed by von Braun, it would seem that they might have actually met after all. That's all for today, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Rob and I talked for over an hour about the historical accuracy of the first season of Project Blue Book. So we talked about a lot more than I've talked about in this video, but hopefully you've enjoyed this episode recap of 5 things I learned from Rob Kristofferson about the first season of Project Blue Book. If you want to hear the full interview with Rob, go check out the full audio podcast episode at basedonatruestorypodcast.com/152. Once again, that's basedonatruestorypodcast.com/152. And don't forget, Rob has a great podcast called Our Strange Skies that covers more historical stories of UFOs. So if you enjoyed this video, go subscribe to his podcast. And speaking of subscribing, for more recaps and full-length episodes of Based on a True Story, hit that subscribe button right now. Thanks for watching.